Hi, this is Sherry from The Longest Stay, and again we're at Clerkenwell Design Week, and I'm here with the lovely Simon Terry. Simon Terry runs a company called Anglepoise. Totally iconic brand. I mean, we sell it. I know it's iconic, and I know the Queen and other members, especially Royal Dahl and other people, have really adopted it. So can you just tell us kind of what's made the brand iconic?
Well, I think for me what's interesting is to get an iconic status with a product is something you can't force. It's something I think just happens over time. So I think we're lucky enough to come up with a product that actually, well, we didn't come up with it, designed by George Carmody in the 1930s, but actually it's a product that solved a particular need, had a particular purpose that was very easy to understand, which was light in any position. And I think when a product has that, it endures. And it's continually used, and because of that, over time, it almost gets its iconic status. So I think if you look at a lot of brands today, when they use the word iconic, I think it can be used in a very sort of temporary way. But if a brand is saying they're iconic, that doesn't work. If someone says, like you have, thank you very much, about your brand, you're iconic, that's when you know it's working. But I think time and just doing one thing really well can really lead to that sort of status.
So I just, have to ask the basic question of, what has happened with manufacturing the product over these years, and how has things changed with manufacturing? I always find it fascinating, the way things and technology have come to play and the different kind of techniques that are in place. Would you have something you can comment about that?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting actually, because I think there have been a lot of changes in technology. We are still, as a company, I would say, primarily metal bashers, which doesn't necessarily sound very romantic. It probably isn't, but it's almost like the technology we had in the 1930s, which was forming metal in different ways, hasn't really fundamentally changed. So if you're spinning a shade, for example, or you're creating tubing, it's still the same processes that were used in the 1930s. There is no difference, because it is the most effective, efficient way of doing things. So it's interesting today with all this sort of talk about rapid manufacturing and rapid prototyping and 3D printing. Actually, it's going to be a long time, I think, before that's valid or viable for products like ours, just because these are very effective processes for making. One of the key pieces of technology we have, though, is actually in the springs and the way they're made, and in a sense that again hasn't really changed as fundamentally in terms of the principles behind it. It's just the machines have got a little bit more modern and advanced to do that. But yeah, in a sense we're sort of unusual that we haven't really changed there. Where we're potentially a little bit different now is we look at new materials like ceramic, and we're also looking at other sort of materials as well in the future that aren't just metal. So that's where we've sort of changed. But again, I'd sort of say they're probably not the most advanced materials. They're still materials that have been used for long periods of time.
So I want to talk to you about your Paul Smith collaboration, because I'm a huge fan of Paul Smith and love it, and love what you've done with him. How did that whole thing come about?
Well, actually it came out, I think it's probably about 3 years ago now, but I was visiting the Design Museum with Catherine, our PR manager, and I was looking at the sort of up and coming events, and it had on there Paul Smith retrospective sort of show, and I was suddenly thinking, yeah, I've always wanted to work with Paul. It sounds fascinating. So basically just sort of got in touch actually through Kenneth, our design director, who's now Sir Kenneth. So we had a meeting up in his fantastic offices, and we actually had the meeting of sirs. So we had Sir Kenneth meeting Sir Paul, and I think we're in that state they don't say sir to each other. I'm not quite sure it works, but we're just in that meeting and having discussions, and it was just like, yeah, really want to work with you, and there was just a real sense of want to do this thing. And Paul is such a charming guy, and it just sort of started from there. So we started initially with one colour we launched, which is a sort of lighter colour, Paul Smith version 1. We've since gone to 2 and 3, so 2 other styles, one that was a little bit more autumnal, and the third one is more of a Mondrian style, which, because we've got 100 years of distill celebrations at the moment, so it's quite relevant on that front. And it just sort of started from there, and it's been hugely successful in terms of just the publicity around the world has been fantastic. Working with a brand like Paul Smith really has given us the international recognition we wouldn't have got alone, because we have been a very British company. So that's really helped us, and we've really grown together. And the collaboration has just gone from strength to strength, and we're now doing the giants and the smaller versions now. But it's commercially very successful for both of us. So we're not only getting a lot of publicity, we're also selling a lot of product too, which is a real win-win for a business. It's very rare you get that.
My favorite product is your giant lamp, of course, and I saw it at the Chelsea Flower Show in orange. I thought it was amazing. I loved it. So what's your favorite product?
Probably my most favourite product to me, you put me on the spot, I wasn't going to answer this question, is probably the Type 75. Is probably my most favourite product, which was actually the second product I worked with Sir Kenneth Grange on. But I think it was the one product that really has created a fantastic, very robust work light that just does exactly what it says it does. So it's probably our most affordable product that's a sprung light, and it's been hugely successful for us as a business. And I think probably the one I love the most. It's quite nice when you're able to take something and update it, and do it in a really successful way. And I think that's where Kenneth has absolutely nailed it. And you talk about iconic in the first stage. I do think that design is another iconic product, and it's all credit to Sir Kenneth and his design ethos and attitude to
No, I know it's a seller for us, and I know it's something we're really proud and we display quite well on our site. I want to talk about the space you're in, because we're actually in a restaurant called the Albion Restaurant in Clerkenwell, and your offices are a combination of the restaurant and your office. So it's an extension of the experience of eating, also becomes your day-to-day office, which I think is great, because today you need to really see products in their environments to buy it and want it. I really understand that's the best way to display your products, not a traditional showroom necessarily sometimes.
Yeah, well, I'd agree, because I think the traditional showrooms have just been things that are just like museums. They're quiet, they're not full of life, they're not full of people. And people do business. It's all about people and unexpectedness. And I think the interesting thing is, if you set up like as part of a restaurant or something, it's helping to create that idea of a destination, and that's very important. And I don't think you can do that alone. So when you sort of maybe mash things up a bit, it creates the unexpected. And I think when people suddenly enter something they're unexpecting, so if somebody, like in the restaurant here, they're eating upstairs and they have to come down to use the facilities downstairs, they suddenly notice us. It's suddenly like, well, I was not expecting that, and then you're open to it and interested, because we're dominated by so many signs and visuals that we just shut it down quite naturally. And I think it's also important for us to understand, the synergy from a brand point of view. And what's nice with a restaurant here like the Albion is it's all about Britishness. It's all about British produce. So there's real links with us. We're also sitting in here with a lot of Urquhart furniture, which is another fantastic British brand. So I think it's always linking and layering all those different emotional connections, which builds up into a much greater experience. But for us, we've been here 3 days. It's an experiment. We want to invite our customers in, invite people in, and the space will change for us. We'll evolve it, the layout, depending on how it changes. And I love that idea of evolution. I love the idea of moving forwards.
This has been really interesting. Thanks so much, Simon. You're now doing a great job taking over the family business. I can hear the passion in your voice, and very passionate, and so great. So we'll continue to work well together, and thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.